Hello everybody, welcome back to another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video. In this video, we're going to go ahead and talk about the disparity between Global and JP when it comes to the units that they recently released on JP, the Otherworld banner units. That banner, I believe, is coming back to Global as well for the first time in like a year, so kudos. If it hasn't already come back, more power to you. If you wanted to pull or you missed the event and stuff like that, now is your chance. But I do want to say that, of course, there are several differences. Most notably, Pikkon switches from being Int type to being STR type. From STR to Int on JP, but nonetheless, you get my point. Otherwise, the units don't use the same metals. They don't use the Dokkan event metals, so they do not have Fierce Battle anymore. They're technically easier to awaken, I believe, on JP, but yeah, they're easier to awaken. But nonetheless, they don't use the same metals. They don't use the Janemba or Gogeta event metals. So, you know, no Fierce Battle for them. I don't know exactly what Goku uses, but the same thing applies to him. So the JP variants picked up Rebirth. But aside from getting Rebirth and, you know, Pikkon losing Prepare for Battle in place of, I believe, Supreme Warrior, which is a crap link, but nonetheless, he loses it. Which is one of the most best things about Pikkon anyway. The passives do get upgraded on the JP variants. I mean, if you look at the leader skills, the passives, everything else about the units, you look at them and say, well, it's a clear upgrade. You know, that's what I did. That's what a lot of people did. But actually, the comparison isn't that simple. So we're going to go ahead and talk about it. I hope you guys enjoy. Subscribe if you are new. At any point, let me know in the comments your guys' thoughts as it pertains to this. But don't take the title and run with it. You know, I'm going to title it probably like, you know, which is better. You can't just obviously say, oh, JP's is better or Global's is better or whatever. Listen to what I got to say. That's what I want to say. Just kind of listen to what I got to say because I might make a point that may sway your opinion, etc., etc. So, to begin, let's go ahead and actually take a look at the Awakened unit. Clear, obvious upgrade, leader skill, 50% 2 key. You know, that's not that important in this debate, but it is kind of important, semi-important, I guess, for the people that do need the sub-leaders or just, I guess, another leader option, but mainly sub-leaders for the Dokkan Battlefield mode, which again is not super important because Global doesn't even have that mode yet for some reason, I guess, but not very important, but it is worth mentioning. Pikkon's variant on JP is at 70%, so super attack is exactly the same. Super extra large, they do supreme damage and greatly reduce the enemy's attack on both of the super attacks, but the passive, like I said, this one on Global has 70% and reduces enemies' defense by 30%. The defense reduction I've talked about several times is a throwaway thing. It doesn't really matter at all. It's worthless, to be honest. It's only good when they do it to you, but when you do it to them, it very, very, I mean, it impacts maybe like 10k damage or something like that. It's not even that big of a deal. 50% defense down and 100% attack up, passive as well. Like I said, this one on JP, though, does not have access to Fierce Battle, which is actually important because you can't just look at this and compare the two and say, well, because the way that the game calculates passives and links differently, they don't, it's not the exact same thing. It's not a linear number. You can't say he's losing 15% from Link, but he's picking up 30% in passive, so there's a 15% gain. He should be stronger. It's not that simple, right? That's just not how it works. And the same applies to the Kaioken Goku. So that being said, like I said, Pikkon, clear upgrade, passive-wise, leader skill-wise, but the real issue with Pikkon is the link skills and the type change. The type change is quietly the most important thing about Pikkon because he went from being a unit, and I want to show this off really quick, that can show up on STR, you know, and STR, I talked about it in the video when I was like, hey, it might be too late for these units, they might need to get buffed. I put that out last week, but STR is quietly, and it quietly has become a very, very shocking speed-friendly team. You know, they have Jiren, who's not showing here right now, I don't think, but they have Jiren, who's recently come out. They have the God of Destruction Toppo, who's come out as well. They have, you know, other variants that are good on this team. You know, you have Gohan and things like that. It's quietly become very, very shocking speed-friendly. Of course, SS4 Goku does have that leader skill. Now, this is the best team Pikkon can be on right now. Hopefully, in the future, they take my advice and make an Otherworld character type of, you know, it's not the same as Resurrected Warriors, but you can make an Otherworld type banner, or category, excuse me. And you can put characters like Janemba and Gogeta and stuff like that. Basically any character with a halo, I guess, too. But nonetheless, he can't be on any other team. But the other thing about that is Pikkon also has Prepare for Battle on Global. That's unavoidable. Like, that is such a crazy thing, and it honestly was the best thing about Pikkon because he can fit on this team and be off rotation and still guarantee himself a super and others, basically. So having Prepare for Battle allows him to function with literally the entirety of this category. You know, even here, nothing but Prepare for Battle with Vegeta. This is something that he lacks on Int. You know, when we bounce over to the Int typing, you know, I don't have access to all of the units here right now. I don't think it's showing several of them, but even then, actually, namely Pikkon, he's not showing here on the JP database for the website yet, but I mean, him not having prepare for battle, but mainly having shocking speed put you in a position where if you don't have good support units that are supporting Ki, which Int isn't flush with them, it's not like Physical that has a ton of them, but I guess they do have orb changers if you want to go there. Or if you're not using Rebirth type units, which again, Int, you can use some Rebirth type units. That one's kind of player centric, depends on what you have. You're kind of in a position where Pikkon just honestly low-key kind of sucks because he's not going to super very often. He's going to be off rotation typically. He's not going to help your leader out. And a lot of the middle to top tier units of this category only have or exclusively have Prepare for Battle and or Over in a Flash. Some of them have Shocking Speed like these two, and it works out pretty well. But again, these are the top tier end units that the average player may or may not have. You know, we have a character like this that has some of the links as well, and another top end unit has that as well. And all of a sudden you're like, well, where does Pikkon fit on a team like this? You know, you can ideally, if you wanted to really try to use Pikkon, you would start here if you had the options. You'd of course put this guy in there because 3 key is awesome always, and then maybe you take a look at units like SSG Goku, who has a combination of Rebirth and Shocking Speed, and then this Whis, and you can really make it work that way, but you shouldn't have to work this hard, you know, to really utilize a unit. So when it comes down to it, honestly, against popular belief, I would say that, and of course, Fierce Battle is important. It is. It's not as important as one would leave you to believe because it depends on if your other units on the rotation with Pikkon need it or not. But I would say that he just fits better on STR overall. Losing Prepare for Battle was probably the biggest nerf that unit got, despite getting an upgraded passive. So I'd say that I think that the STR variant is better. Now, to show off some calculations courtesy of my man Zed, he did actually go ahead and tweet me this stuff too. So, bro, I stayed tuned, okay? I was ready for it, and I do want to show the calculations here. So Link's considered active as far as attack is concerned. He's only getting Fierce Battle. And as far as the Int one goes, he's getting Experienced Fighters because, of course, several other units on the team, Gogeta, LR Vegito, and SS3 Bardock have it. Ultimately, his average attack as a calculated number comes down to 463k as the STR variant, while this one here does just a little bit more, 475,000 versus 463. Okay, you know, he's hitting just a little bit harder, but you have to work harder. So yeah, that's kind of what I would look at. And like I said, STR has become more friendly to a unit like Pikkon. But if all you care about is sheer damage, then Pikkon is your man on Int, you know? Let me see his final comment here. As you can see, it's around the same damage, 10k less for STR. Yeah, just about 12, somewhere in there. I don't know. Is it worth losing Prepare for Battle and being part of the team that is probably the most crowded with top tier units? Maybe. You judge. I only do calcs. Yeah, Super Int is it's up there as far as being stacked with top tier units. So that's kind of my debate. If the damage difference is only 10k, now it doesn't really matter between the two. It just, I mean, you have to live with the version that you have on the version that you have. But if the damage difference is only 10k, then it doesn't really matter to me. It doesn't. I mean, just more viability on different teams and more usability due to the options available, you know. And I think that Pikkon actually has a really solid place on STR2 because not only are they more friendly to a unit with his link set, they also can cater more to him and, you know, have more viability on terms of being used on things like Super Battle Road, which is more of a specialty stage where you try to take more defensive type units or more units that have some of those intangibles like tanking and stunning, etc. But still, you know, a combination of him and Jiren and just other tank type units like SS4 Goku who can also kind of fit into that bubble. Of course, you'd have to have him as your leader as well. But you see what I'm saying? There are different ways you can use him. So I would definitely take STR over, but, you know, Int does do 10k more damage, which is like less than a normal attack these days. So anyways, when it comes down to this guy, his difference is probably more profound. So just like Pikkon, the JP variant does lose Fierce Battle. I think that's the only link he loses, but he swaps that out for Rebirth. Also, Super Kaioken Kamehameha does 7% on global versus 10% HP back to you. Leader skill is different. Like, I'm not going to cover that again, but same thing I talked about with Pikkon's leader skill difference, the sub-leader, etc. Worth mentioning. Passive skill on global, Ki +3, and attack +100% when HP is 50% or above. Very, very cookie cutter. Very, very simple. The Japanese variant, like I said, better leader skill, 5% per super. 4 Ki, which, I mean, I don't really think the Ki is necessary at all, but I guess it's there to ensure a super, but a unit with his link set, you know, adding on, you know, Rebirth, it's kind of like, okay, did he have Prepare for, yeah, he does, Prepare for Battle, Shocking Speed, Super Saiyan, Kamehameha, Over in a Flash, Otherworld Warrior, and Rebirth. This man has all the best key links in the game, so he really doesn't need it, but I guess. Also, he gets 120% attack up, so that's a 20% buff there. And he has a medium chance to dodge attacks. So medium is about 25% chance. But another thing you notice, no restriction. They completely remove the restriction. So that, in my mind, is the biggest buff the Japanese version gets. I mean, I think that the reduced damage, the medium chance to dodge, means that you take less damage on average, a lot less damage with using the JP variant versus the global one. But aside from that, he's a lot more consistent. I mean, it's not impossible. I don't even want to say it's hard, depending on the teams that you have, the event that you're taking on, to stay above 50%. But it is a thing. It's something you have to consider and have to be aware of. You have to play around it, because maybe one super or two supers knocks you below that threshold, and then all of a sudden, this guy loses all viability. He becomes literally just a unit that's there and can't do anything offensively or defensively. The global variant, that is. Now, the JP variant does not have that at all. And I thought that it was pretty interesting when I looked at the Unawakened version, who actually has a lower restriction and basically the same passive, just a better passive than Global's Awakened version altogether. This one has the chance to dodge, sometimes dodges. I'm assuming that's a low chance, I don't know. But otherwise, he has 3 key and 100%, and then a 30% restriction. Like, I don't even get that. That's interesting. They still gave him restriction, but even a better restriction than this one. But when it comes down to these guys, he has an added incentive of being available on the Pure Saiyan's team, so he can be utilized differently. But I will say that having Rebirth is actually a good thing for him on that team, assuming that you have a unit like LR Super Saiyan 3 Goku, who all of a sudden links very well with this guy. I mean, they share, what, more than half of this guy's link set. They share Super Saiyan, they share Kamehameha, I believe. He shares Over in a Flash, he shares Rebirth, and that's very good for LR Super Saiyan 3, a unit that really needs to guarantee he gets the Ultra Super off. So that 2 extra key from Rebirth, while it doesn't sound like that much, it is very, very important. But other than that, I mean, losing Fierce Battle can be considered a 100% nerf for this unit. I mean, STR Pikkon versus Int Pikkon, I feel like, just honestly, and I talked about it earlier, I feel like just for too many reasons, STR is just seemingly better, you know. But for the Goku comparison, you look at the JP one, and it's like, well, there's too many reasons why he's better than the global one, right? But if you care about the damage, let's go ahead and take a look at the calculations. Now, both of these were calculated under the Super Saiyan Blue Evolution Vegeta's Leader Skill, the Pure Saiyans category. So Global's variant has access to Super Saiyan and Fierce Battle for this comparison. They're not considering Kamehameha because it's kind of inconsequential, I guess. But otherwise, you know, this is a 130% attack increase. Ultimately, with the leader skill, the attack stays the same between the two, 37,000 on both. You know, Global's up here, JP's down here. Otherwise, passive active, 74,000 for Globals versus JP's 82,000. The attack immediately shows a disparity, as it should, due to the disparity in the passives. But when you activate Super Saiyan and Fierce Battle, and then you activate just Super Saiyan, all of a sudden, Fierce Battle bumps the Globals one's damage, or basically attack stat higher, you know, as far as that is concerned. And then you factor in the 12 key multiplier, all of a sudden there's a 4K disparity for Global, and then otherwise you factor in the potential system, SA10, etc., and all of that amounts to 740,000 versus 716,000. So JP's actually doesn't even do as much damage as Global's. Surprisingly enough, Fierce Battle gives Global the edge in damage by 20k attack, more or less. So yeah, just about somewhere around there, 24-ish. But, you know, who's counting? Some may say JP is better because of the dodge and support for LR Super Saiyan 3. Others may say Fierce Battle is way more useful. So that's kind of what I was talking about. So the damage here, the difference between damage, it's surprising. And like I said earlier, you can't just look at the numbers and say, oh, well, you know, he's losing this, but he's picking up 20% of the passive. It doesn't calculate that way, and this is a clear indicator of that. The difference is noticeable, right? It's noticeable. It's there, 740 versus 716. But let me spin it to you this way. In a realm where we have units doing millions of damage, and that's just kind of the normal, you know, units are doing millions of damage. This is with free buffs as well, 30% or whatever he did there. But this isn't factoring in the chance at critical hits or level 15 crits or anything like that, a Rainbow Star. So, of course, these units will buff up to close to, if not past, 1 million damage, ultimately. But in a world where we have that, you know, I would say, personally, I can see why you would say Globals is better. I can see it. I can see it just because that's the meta for the game. But my opinion on this is opposite to the Pikkon one, because the difference is, yes, that's the thing, but how much are you giving up in turn? You know, and you might make the argument, well, you don't take very much damage these days, yada yada, teams, etc., etc. You know, but it does depend on what event you're taking on and stuff like that. So how much damage are you taking back collectively? The medium chance to dodge, while it is only medium, right, is still a thing. You might dodge a hit 2 or 3 times a turn or something like that. Who knows? Each one of these hits, because this unit does not get any sort of defense up boost, could be anywhere from like 25,000 to 50,000, depending on the event, depending on type advantage or disadvantage. So really, this unit takes a lot of damage. He doesn't have anything to help him out either. I mean, the same thing applies to Pikkon, but on the events where Pikkon can reduce the enemy's attack, he takes reduced damage, of course. But still, the unit's going to take a lot of freaking damage. He's just going to. That's just natural. So the defense, I think, comes from the ability to dodge, and that helps out a lot. Also, the 2% that he sacrifices less, while, again, it's only 2%, it's not crazy, it is noticeable, because it could be the difference between life and death, depending on where you're at, what event you're taking on, because I believe it's like an extra, like, I think it's like 2,000 HP or so, on a 100k HP team or something like that. I did the calculations a couple days ago, forgot, but ultimately, you start getting 2,000, 4,000, 6,000, 8,000 HP saved, which isn't a lot, but every other turn, it amounts to something. So ultimately, that coupled with the fact that he's just not going to be in a position where ever, he has to worry about being above a certain HP restriction, I would definitely say that is more valuable than one other bonus of getting access to Fierce Battle. Because I would also say, and like I said earlier, especially if you have LRSS3, this guy is one of the guys you'd probably want to have on rotation with him. I'd have to take a look at the team again, but he's one of the best possible link buddies for that guy. So all of a sudden, you know, he also doesn't even have Fierce Battle, LRSS3, so you have, again, Rebirth there. I would say that's more valuable to me versus one thing. But again, it comes down to preference at this point, because all these units are too close. And that's one of the things I wanted to drive home, is all these units, they're very close. So despite the fact that it may look like clear-cut one is better than the other, there are arguments to be made on both sides, which is why I thought this was such a compelling video to make. But personally, I'd say I like Global's version of Pikkon, and I personally like, which isn't that big of a difference, I guess, you know, Super Kaioken JP variant. But a second part of this is, do you think that Global should get some sort of awakening for their units, or Extreme Z Awaken or something like that, that would make them better, or give them, maybe they just change the passives. Oh my gosh, if Global decides to give these guys the new passives but keep the link skills, oh my gosh, there is no comparison. You know, things like that. And like I said, Pikkon losing Prepare for Battle is just, it's so unnecessary, a debuff. But otherwise, that's it, guys. Hope you all enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Make sure you guys do leave in the comments you guys' thoughts, of course. Also, keep in mind, in the future, when these guys get on better teams, the disparity between them may grow. One way or the other. Maybe Global's just takes off being better than JP's versions or whatever. Who knows? But thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Take it easy. Peace out, guys.